Iran's military has shot down a US surveillance drone, saying it violated the country's airspace.
The defenders of the borders of the Islamic Republic of Iran respond to all foreign aggression, and our reaction is and will be categorical and absolute.
But Washington says the drone was targeted over international waters. It accuses Tehran of using mines to target oil tankers in the Strait of Hormuz, a charge the Iranian government denies. As tensions rise, oil prices are also surging. WTI crude was trading 3.5% higher on Thursday, while the price of Brent crude also jumped by nearly 3%.
A fifth of world oil supply actually passes through the Strait of Hormuz every single day. So any kind of flare-up in that region is naturally going to cause a lot of concern.
The standoff began after the US ditched the Iran nuclear deal and slapped sanctions on Tehran, a strategy that Washington says is proving to be successful.
Our pressure campaign is working. It is making Iran's violent and expansionist foreign policy cost prohibitive.
For investors, that means no quick resolution for the crisis affecting one of the world's major oil supply routes. And it's not the only factor driving up prices. The US Federal Reserve has hinted it may cut interest rates later this year.
In light of increased uncertainties and muted inflation pressures, we now emphasize that the committee will closely monitor the implications of incoming information for the economic outlook and will act as appropriate to sustain the expansion with a strong labor market and inflation near its 2% objective.
That's pushing down the value of the US dollar and driving up prices of commodities. But analysts point out demand for fuel isn't rising as sharply as its price, which is also why OPEC members have been cutting their output.
What we haven't really focused on is the demand side, because it's almost been a given that we're going to see demand continue to grow because the global economy was running at such a healthy pace. Well, now there's a major risk factor here, and I think that's what's really acting as a drag.
That could create an even greater imbalance in the global oil market, setting it up for more turmoil in the future. Mobin Nasir, TRT World.
Well, for more on this, Sina Toossi joins us now from Washington. He's a research associate at the National Iranian American Council. Welcome to Money Talks, Sina. Now, President Donald Trump has told reporters that you'll soon find out if Washington will launch an attack on Iran. Do you think that the US will indeed strike back?
I think we're in an incredibly dangerous position. We've arguably never been this close to a US-Iran war. It remains to be seen if the U.S. will launch retaliatory strikes, but I think the important thing to really keep in mind here is that this escalatory cycle that's been set off between the U.S. and Iran, the main reason is because of the Trump administration and their withdrawal from the Iran nuclear deal last year. You know, that nuclear deal was struck in 2015. It was working successfully to prevent Iran from developing a nuclear weapon. Trump left the deal last year, engaged in this so-called maximum pressure campaign. He's really pushed Iran into a corner, terminated waivers on Iranian oil sanctions. And we're seeing in the past month, Iran taking these kind of steps of increasing its own pressure, whether that be on kind of increasing its nuclear capacity of its nuclear program and starting to halt compliance with aspects of the nuclear deal, or these alleged actions in the Persian Gulf. And now we see this drone strike. But arguably, the Trump administration has really set the U.S. and Iran on a collision course, and there's no telling if it's actually going to result in erupting in a conflict, but it's not looking good right now.
Yes, so let's talk more about this nuclear deal, because Iran has recently said that it'll soon break the limit in terms of enriched uranium stockpiles as outlined under that 2015 deal, unless the European Union and the remaining signatories to the deal manage to somehow revive it. Do you think this is the right approach to take by threatening to increase its stockpile of uranium?
I mean, you know, the nuclear deal was always a quid pro quo where in exchange for sanctions relief, Iran would agree to these limits on its nuclear program. And that has not materialized, especially since the Trump administration withdrew from the nuclear deal, reimposed all of these sanctions. Iran is getting none of the benefits of the deal, paying all of the costs. And, you know, in the past year, the Iranian government has really exercised restraint and given time to Europe and other parties of the deal to kind of make sure Iran gets some of the sanctions relief benefits it was due under the deal. And none of that has again materialized up until now. And finally, this past May, at the beginning of the month in May, Iran has announced that it's going to start halting compliance with aspects of the nuclear deal. Now, it's important to note that these two limitations that Iran is set to breach on its low enriched uranium stockpile and its stockpile of heavy water, these are limitations that the U.S. has sanctioned Iran's ability to meet. The U.S., even before Iran announced that it was going to breach aspects of the nuclear deal, it said that it imposed sanctions on any countries that were buying Iranian heavy water or buying Iranian low enriched uranium. So it's preventing Iran from actually meeting these requirements of the nuclear deal. And it remains, we'll see if Iran actually goes ahead in the next 10 days and breaches this limit, but they're waiting on Europe to kind of make sure Iran gets some benefits for the deal.
Now, we've heard the US President Donald Trump respond to further questions about this latest strike on its drone. He seems to downplay his personal appetite for a conflict with Iran, saying that perhaps this was a mistake by a rogue general in Iran. Do you think there is this division between himself and others within his own administration as to whether or not to attack Iran?
I think there absolutely is. I think, John Bolton, his national security advisor, has really driven the Iran policy. Bolton is a figure who's long openly made his desire for a war with Iran clear. And he's really spearheaded the imposition of this sanction and created this scenario where we are on the cusp of war. Trump himself campaigned against getting into another Middle Eastern war, campaigned on withdrawing from the Middle East. And right now, as we see that tensions are reaching the precipice, these divisions between Trump and Bolton are coming to the fore. And I think, this risk of war is always going to be there unless Trump really fires Bolton and switches to an actual pro-diplomacy strategy and a pro-diplomacy team that can actually get him the deal that Trump says he wants with Iran.
Okay, Sina Toossi, we'll have to leave it there, but thank you again for your analysis.